This is the latest project from filmmaker Rodrigo Garcia, who's been around for quite some time now. But interestingly enough, I don't think I've ever seen one of his movies. So I didn't really have too many expectations of this going in other than the fact that, well, it stars Glenn Close and Mila Kunis, and that is usually a good thing. And it turns out that it's a good thing here too, because they play a mother and a daughter. And the basic idea here is that Kunis plays a heroin addict who's once again trying to get sober. But the mom is basically over it at this point, since they've been through this time and time again. But maybe this time it's for real, maybe this time it's different, maybe it's worth one last shot. That's the gist of the movie. It's the mom and the daughter trying to work things out. The mom tries her best to keep the daughter on the straight and narrow, and the daughter is also doing her best not to try to wiggle out of it and bail this time. And I've seen similar stories tackled in movies before. The primary example is probably Beautiful Boy, with Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet, which I did like to some extent. But I do remember having some issues with it, however I can't quite remember what those issues were. I do vaguely remember liking the filmmaking overall though, and that it was a rather well put together film. This on the other hand is what I would call a relatively competently made movie. Like, nothing stands out as being outright terrible, there are clearly professionals involved here. However, it does feel very bland in many ways, it doesn't really do anything special. It doesn't take risks and virtually nothing about it pops and impresses me very much. But this movie did have one saving grace, and I feel like most of that comes down to Glenn Close. Because she was really good in this as the mom, and she completely sold me on the character. I 100% believed she was the mother of a long-time heroin addict, and that's pretty much what made me like this movie. She just brings the heart and the raw emotion that the movie needed to carry it along. And you know, it just made me think about how heartbreaking it must be to be a parent in this situation and to watch your child struggle like this. And what an emotional roller coaster it must be like to go through the same thing over and over again. And you just begin to wonder, at what point do you just say, it's enough, I give up, or is giving up just not an option? Now, when it comes to Mila Kunis' performance though, I wasn't completely convinced. It's not her best work, and a role like this just needed a little bit more nuance and subtlety. And it's really in the more laid back and toned down scenes where she actually shines. But in the more frantic ones where emotions run high, I honestly really didn't buy it. Although I wouldn't say she was bad in this, I just feel like a role like this required a little bit more than she gave. And well, the movie as a whole isn't exactly subtle either, so perhaps the script didn't really help matters. Because this thing just spells everything out for you, there's really no guesswork or speculation needed here, as far as figuring out what's going on is concerned. And it spells out the whole backstory too in just expository dialogue. And I mean, it gets the job done, I guess, and I think the movie more or less did what it was supposed to do. Although I will say I'm a little bit confused by the message it puts out there in the end. But honestly, this was a very watchable, albeit not a great movie, with an emotional core that worked. And I did enjoy it enough to probably give it something like a very low 6. Boop. But would I recommend it? If it sounds interesting, why not, but it's far from a must-see. So you can most likely skip it or don't. You can also do whatever your heart desires. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.